wonderful miniature succulent growth habit, this glaucous leaves. Again, you can see it's widespread, but it's not in cultivation, unfortunately. We were lucky to get some seed in Malawi and have produced a healthy population of these now, and they are available. Now, it is not so easy to, not so difficult to grow. I hear many people having difficulty growing them in the past, but we found that they actually grow in between all the other orchids in Central Africa, which tells me that they don't need special attention. They just need the same conditions as all the other orchids. And that means daily waterings in summer and every other day in winter. It grows slightly brighter, like almost like Cattleya conditions, but other than that, don't treat it any differently just because it's got succulent leaves. It means it can take dry periods, but it does not really like to have them, in my opinion. So this is where they grow, and they're always associated with lichens in nature. Their roots are almost always covered in lichens, and that protects the roots from dehydration as well. And I guess they get some kind of moisture from that, because the lichen also absorbs moisture from the air. And as I said earlier, this can be almost a trash plant in some areas. There can be thousands of them. And it's a close-up. You can see the leaves are dehydrated already. And again, this was in October, which is at the end of the dry season. So the last rain, proper rain that these plants would have had would have been in April. So May, June, July, August, September, that's 5 months without proper rain. And that's how they can survive. But the other orchids growing next to them doesn't have the same succulent conditions. And they go through it maybe by going deciduous, or having thick roots. So there's always some method they use to get through the long dry season. Just going back one, you will see the understory of this woodland has got hardly any undergrowth. And a big part of the African woodlands is ants. What do you call them? Termites ants. So they feed on dead plant material, and so at the end of the dry season, there's hardly any foliage left on the ground, which makes it very easy to get through, luckily. So go and look for these orchids. Again, there's a few more, and then on the right is one of our seedlings 2 years from Flask. They are super vigorous from Flask, and as you can see there, this one got 3 developing inflorescences. And if you look closely at the mount, it's quite a rough bark mount, and it's green from all the algae because of all the watering we are doing. So it really, just to reiterate, it really likes to have a lot of water in its growing season, especially. And that same plant a few months later looked like this. And what a show. So here's a video of a few hundred of them in flower. This greenhouse has got a polycarbonate roof and shade netting on the side. So I don't control the temperature, but I do control the watering. You'll see the overhead sprinklers there that every day goes on for half an hour to 40 minutes. I've got Selaginella on the ground, just of all the watering that goes like a weed. And the light levels in here would be like 50 or 60%. It's quite bright, but and the roof with the sides closed with net gives it slightly higher humidity. But yeah, it doesn't. Next to it grows things like Angraecum, Mystacidium, Typhonanthe Millerii, Rangeris muscicola. So there's a variety of orchids growing in this greenhouse. Really pretty thing. Who's got one of these now? Okay, there's at least 2. I think there are about 4 plants there on the table as well, so be quick. All right, another miniature from Malawi. Polystachya brassii. Polystachya is a big genus, about 200 or 300 species, of which most grow in Africa. It's a pan-tropical genus. Brassii is a real miniature that it's almost impossible to spot in the trees. It goes completely deciduous in winter, and at the end of winter or early spring, it sends out the inflorescences and flowers in October, which is probably the only time you will see it, because you won't spot the roots are always covered in lichens. You don't see the white roots that you like you normally would, but it makes a wonderful little display. You can see even the bulbs on the plant on the left is covered in lichens. And in the middle right where the branch forks there, that's where the 2 little plants are in flower. And when grown in cultivation, you can get actually a specimen plant of this that smells wonderful, flowers for 4 weeks, and it's just perfect for a small greenhouse or collector of miniature orchids. We're in the process of getting this into flask, so pretty soon we will have seedlings available of this. But yeah, look again, the green bark and the moss around the base. This, as I said earlier, gets no special treatment with watering. It gets watered throughout winter as well. But being on a mount, it dries out very quickly, and you don't have the rot issues if they were grown in a pot. Right, from South Africa, probably the best orchid in South Africa. Maybe Disa uniflora will challenge it for that. Is Mystacidium capensi, quite widespread from the Southern Cape near George all the way up the east coast, all the way to Mpumalanga, very close to where we live. Extremely floriferous, very easy to grow. That's an in situ picture, and that's an important picture to see as well, because you don't see moss around the base of the plant or on the branches. The roots are bare and open, and that's a very important factor when growing Mystacidiums. They really don't like to stay wet for too long. So we never put sphagnum around the base of a Mystacidium, because if it stays wet too long, you will get rot, and that will be the end of it. It really needs to dry out between waterings and pretty quickly after you've watered. Again, this is one of our greenhouses where all our mother plants are. Wonderful displays, and if you put a few together on a mount, you can have a display like that. That is hard to beat. They flower for us in November, which for you would be around May. So that's a good time of the year to have flowers. We've done a line breeding of these, and the two photos, the plants on the left are from our line breeding, which include our biggest one that we've sipped with Don Brown's FCC that he got on his plant. So far the seedlings have showed improved size and shape on the flowers. So yeah, it's very exciting to get these now into cultivation. Okay, here's a video again of our growing area. All on cork, which works very well. And some of the ones are way at the bottom of the grid and the others way at the top. It's quite adaptable when it comes to light levels. It doesn't really matter if it's bright or dark. It's more the watering that's important, that they don't stay wet for too long. Right, so we're going on to another South African species, Millerii, Diaphananthe Millerii. It's actually on our red data list. It grows where the city of Durban is now, so a lot of its habitat has been cleared for housing. There's maybe 1 or 2 small populations left, and then I think 1 or 2 small populations in the Eastern Cape. We have also produced this now from seeds, so we've got wonderful plants available that it's very easy to grow. It comes from deep shady conditions in coastal forests, so this technically needs warmer conditions than the others I've shown, but in our greenhouses it grows outside, goes down to 0 degrees from time to time, as long as they are dry when it is that cold. But yeah, that is a magnificent species, don't you agree? Yeah, and the green anthercap makes it. That's just our big mother plant with hundreds of flowers. And again, a video of our production. Same greenhouse where the Cytorchis crassifolia was. So exactly the same conditions, although one does like it brighter and the other one shadier, these grow right next to each other. And they flower about the same time, so you can imagine the scent at night in this greenhouse. It is incredible. So all the Angraecoids are night-flying moths that are all, each one is adapted for the scent, firstly that it is attracted by, and then secondly by the spur length and the shape of the spur. So I haven't had any natural pollination of this because it's not in its natural habitat, but many of the other Angraecoids will spontaneously set seed, so from moths that are in our area. They all only smell at night to conserve energy, because the moths are only at night. Okay, what's happening now? Okay, so Microcoelia is a fascinating genus that's unfortunately not available in cultivation. Here in California, I see quite a few plants of Stolzii, which you guys do extremely well with. But there are so many other species that you never see. This is a wonderful species from Zambia that grows in the understory, quite deep shade, which is quite unexpected because they don't have any leaves to photosynthesize. All their chlorophyll is in the roots. So one would expect them to need high light levels, but this one doesn't have. It grows in this Miombo woodland again, but in the understory. So often on anthills, where they are slightly protected from fires. And to see them in flower is incredible. These they glitter almost. There's one close up here. Now you can see the texture on the one on the right. That's one in cultivation. It really glistens like stars. And this is something that we've been struggling a lot to get germination on. There must be some trick that we're missing. So we will keep working. I think there's huge potential for this kind of orchids in horticulture. But then this one has got almost a mystique about it. Since I was a young boy, I read about this orchid from Zambia and Malawi and Zimbabwe, but never could see it in real life. And then on a trip, we managed to get some seed. And we have now great seedlings of this available, but you know, it's not necessarily the most spectacular orchid, but because of this mystique that you could never see it or didn't know if it really existed, it is on my top 10 list for now. It's got very long spurs, up to 20 centimeters. grows in the same habitat as the previous species, the Microcoelia, but this one where the Microcoelia was low down in shade, this one grows high up, very bright, almost inaccessible areas. It's 20 meters up in the air where they grow. And if you look at the plant, it's got very thick roots to conserve moisture, and very vanda-like leaves as well, hard and V-shaped. Slow growing, not so easy from a collected plant, but from seedlings, these are quite easy to grow. One of the few as well that is non-resuppinate, if you could see that. So the lip is uppermost. So the moth almost has to go upside down to get its tongue down the spur.
I never watched it on the phone before, okay? So I don't know all the ins and outs of this on the phone.
Are they related to Angraecum?
It's an Angraecum.
Excuse me, was that a question? I think so, yeah. So, yeah, vanilla. We all know vanilla planifolia, the commercial one. Africa's got a few species, and one spectacular species in Rocherai that grows all along the east coast from northern Zululand all the way up into, I think, Kenya, and then across into Madagascar as well. Fascinating species that grows in coastal shrub, in full sun, in sandy soils, and it can make a fantastic show when you get a big specimen. And this looks like this for 4 or 5 months of the year. And it makes so many flowers. Each one only lives for 1 day, but they just keep on coming. And it is a great species that unfortunately is not easy to flower in cultivation, like a normal vanilla as well. This plant has to grow 3-4 meters tall before it will start flowering. And our one in cultivation flowered last year for the first time, and maybe 6-7 years since we had it. It's a vine, yeah, it's a proper vine, but a leafless vine, where normal vanilla will have big leaves. This one doesn't have any leaves at all. And this next one shows you the habit of it. Only the seeds, although I'm not sure about this particular species. You know, so this, from what I read, this one is night-scented because it attracts night-flying moths again to get pollinated. But you know, I've collected seed of this, and I tried to get it to germinate, but it hasn't been successful yet. So we'll work on it. But yeah, I can't remember if I smelled the seed. Well, it wasn't anyway. It wasn't strikingly vanilla-like. But yeah, it's a fantastic species that we grow from cuttings, so we do have it available from time to time. But it is a tropical species, and you need to keep your temperatures up above 10 degrees, 15 degrees, even better. It's more vanda-like in growing conditions than the others. All right, and then I can't have this talk without Ancilla africana. It is probably my favorite orchid of all orchids. And it is something that we as Afri Orchids are doing a lot of work on. There are so many different possibilities with Ancilla africana. We have a wonderful base to work from. And as you can see, it's widespread from South Africa, north to Kenya, Sudan, and then west to Ivory Coast and Ghana. And with that distribution, you do expect a huge variety of flowers and shapes and sizes. So the next one shows you all wild collected species or clones of the same species. So the top left is the alba form, as it's known, or pure colored form. That comes from South Africa, very close to my hometown. And then next to it is slightly higher in Kruger Park. The one next to it is from Kenya, top right is from Zambia, northern Zambia. Bottom left is Taita Hills in Kenya again. Then the black one is from Sudan. Yeah, and then the bottom right is from Botswana, like the previous strip. So in the past, there used to be a few species, Gigantea and Nilotica and Africana. And if you start looking at it from this kind of point of view, it is difficult to draw a line and say, this is where one species stops and the next one starts. So I'm happy with it all being one species. And then there is the best wild collected one that I've ever seen, and that is Montmillet, which is the clonal name for the Eric Young Orchid Foundation's best plants. And we have a plant of this that we got through a friend who got it from Eric Young. And this is just far superior than any of the other forms of nature. And the origin is still not sure, not clear, but I suspect it is from West Africa, Nigeria, that kind of area. But the plants get big. It's been used a lot in hybridizing, and as such, the progeny is also quite big. They can get massive, as you can see here. This is a plant grown by James Rose of Cal Orchid that he's won a few trophies with, but that plant is taller than me. So you need a big greenhouse to grow this kind of orchid. What we are now doing is using this kind of clones from Zambia that stay small, and incorporating them in the breeding program to make the progeny much smaller. This is quite attractive in a small pot with clear mouth flowers. So what we're trying to achieve with Ancelias is exactly the compactness. I think that for me is the first aim, is to get the plants to become smaller, so that they can grow in more greenhouses or even in houses. Secondly is to get them to be floriferous, because it's one thing to have a small plant, but you want Ancelias with side shoots, so side inflorescences on the bulb, and many flowers. And then you need different colors, and so the colors is getting there. We'll show you a variety of our seedlings here. This is wonderful with the green background, big flowers, but unfortunately on a big plant. Then on the left is Elru, which is a clone of ours that we are using a lot now in breeding. It's got big flowers with bold markings, with clear margins, and a wonderful lip. Often the lip in Ancelias is small compared to, or out of balance, but this has got a very good lip. On the right is more the South African form hybridized onto the Montmillet type, which gives you interesting patterns, but the shape is not there necessarily. And then Duckett Nurseries in Cape Town, or just outside of Cape Town, they have a very big cut flower nursery. But they've also done wonderful breeding with Ancelias, and they've bred this line, which we call the lipstiffy line almost. And these have been fantastic and highly sought after with the black markings and the red lip. This is from our breeding, where we've used the Montmillet type onto the South African type again. Sorry, the Montmillet type with the Botswana type, then that gives you the red coloring, and the wonderful lip comes through from the Montmillet type. And this has been a compact plant that we've used as well now with breeding onto even smaller ones. So these should have very compact plants with many flowers. More reds coming out. It's almost like a Merlot color. And then the shape is important, obviously. We all, as an orchid judge and participating in shows, you always want quality flowers. And here we're getting to full shape flowers that with age will have a wonderful show. On the right is this one is the parent of the one on the right here. So you can see the coloring coming through, but a great shape. Now just to get that lip a bit bigger. And probably the two best seedlings to flower this year. A wonderful round yellow form with those pink side lobes. And then a dark black one with that fantastic lip on the right. So this is something that we will use now in future breeding again. So let's talk about culture of Ancelias. Those of you who've been to Kruger Park might have seen them in situ. And if you have ever been in Kruger Park in December, you will know that it's one of the hottest places on earth. It is easily above 40 degrees Celsius, so that's over, I think, over 100 Fahrenheit. And that on that dead tree is an Ancelia in full flower. And it can go through summer without any shade. So it's in full sun from 5:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. It gets rain only from October till April. So it is such a tough plant, you can't believe. So if an Ancelia is not happy for you, you are probably treating it too nicely. It really can take abuse. High light levels, high temperatures. It does not like to be cold and wet. So for you guys here in the Bay Area, you'll have to grow it under cover. And against the canopy, against the roof of your greenhouse is probably the best place to grow it. And we water our greenhouse in winter, maybe once a month only. I have them all in one greenhouse, and they really don't like to be cold and wet. So that's probably the most important thing when it comes to Ancelias. Secondly, is they are heavy feeders. They often grow in dead trees. So there's lots of rotting bark and wood in there, and it feeds off that, very much like a caracetum. So we often get them germinating in our garden where we've cut down branches of a tree. There where we cut it, that's where the Ancelia will germinate. They don't need to be repotted. They grow on themselves. Yeah, they will make these leaf raker roots. You'll see that in nature as well. And the aim of that is to, or the purpose of that is to collect leaves, as you can see here, and then it composts over time and it makes its own fertilizer that way. So it's a very clever plant. And if your plant makes these leaf raker roots, that's a sign that it's happy, in my opinion. You don't have to throw leaves in it, but it is a good indicator that you can actually give it a lot of fertilizer. So I'm going to end off with this video of our Ancelia greenhouse in its prime. And it is everyone our pride and joy every year in September, October. So this greenhouse is also open on the sides, as you can see, but it's got a plastic roof to allow me to control the watering. And in summer, we will water maybe once every week. The plants are big, so they take longer to dry out. Smaller plants will be watered more frequently. And you can see there's lots of seed pods forming because we are in the habitat. So there's lots of pollinators around, and all the seed pods obviously leads to lots of seeds flying all over the place. And you will find many places in our garden there will be little Ancelias germinating now. But yeah, it's a wonderful spectacle when they are in full flower. All the different colors, and some of these come from forest areas in northern Africa and others from South Africa where it's dry, but in this greenhouse, they all get treated the same, and that works well for them all. So the big one in the back there, that's from the Taita Hills. You can see these have got wonderful branched inflorescences, big flowers, but very starry. Yes, it is a widely grown orchid in South Africa, along the, not on the high veld or the plateau where it gets cold in winter, but from about everything under 1,000 meters below sea level, above sea level, sorry, below that. That's a good climate along the eastern coastline, basically. Like the Western Cape is not ideal because it's, again, it's got a winter rainfall area like you guys. But yeah, this is widely grown and they're very popular in South Africa. It's called the leopard orchid, as you can see why. And we, in South Africa, we're lucky in that we have big gardens. Space is not the same problem like you guys have here. We, or everybody that, I don't know anybody who lives in a townhouse, basically. Everybody's got a big garden. And that's a big privilege that we have, that we've got that space. And so I'm happy to take questions. If there are any questions, yes. Yes. Yeah, and it's an aphrodisiac as well. So it's got, there are lots of uses that the native indigenous people use it for. But yeah, it must work because I've got lots and I haven't been struck by a lightning before. So yeah. Yeah, no, they are, all these orchids have got various uses, and if you ever go to a muti market in South Africa where they sell native plants and parts of plants for medicine, there will always be orchids, tubers, bulbs, plants, roots. So orchids is a big portion of the African muti market, yeah. Yes. In Zambia? Yeah, so every African country has got a demand. And the traditional healers do it responsibly. The problem comes in when you get the commercial collectors that will go into an area, collect everything and take it to the city and then sell it. But the local guy who's been using it for decades knows that he needs to make sure there's enough for him to continue to do this. So it's not a problem with it. It is just the commercial guys who is putting pressure on some populations of orchids for sure. You can drive around South Africa in certain parts and find big Ancelia plants next to the road that's been chopped down and being sold next to the road. And that's more because they realize there's a horticultural value in them. So that's more for collectors, not for growers, not for multi-market. Excuse me? Yeah, these we purchased from a friend who had a big collection. So yes. Ron, you can hear you?
Yeah, yes, I couldn't hear. Yeah, I can't hear the audience. I can only, yeah. So, hey, Lourens, how are you? Great talk. Great talk. Hey, listen, I have an unheated greenhouse, and it's our winter averages between 8 and 10 degrees Celsius at minimums, but it can go down to about 2 degrees, and then it lasts about 3 months. Is there anything, any of your seasonal orchids that can take that kind of situation? I know you mentioned the Angraecum cochiana as getting down to 4 degrees, but how long is that period? How long is that time?
Okay, so
how long can it take that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our winter temperatures goes down below 10 from, let's say, mid-May till mid-August. So June, July, August. So 3 months basically that our temperatures go below 10. But as I said earlier, it doesn't stay there for long. By 9 o'clock, it's often at 20 degrees. And a normal winter's day in our area would be 25 degrees Celsius, which I guess is 70 odd degrees, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it is, if it is like, it's been pretty cold here for us walking around. And I guess the last 2 days has actually been really hot for February, yeah. You'll have to give them, I think most of these will need some protection if it's going to be a continued cold spell. The cold as such is not the problem, it's the wetness that goes with the cold. So if there's a rain period coming through and the plants get rained on, that's when you will have problems. If they are cold and dry, I don't see any problems.
Yeah, no, because they're under cover. So I was looking for things that I could possibly grow here. As I told you, I live down by the airport. So I was interested in the Polystecia brassii, and so I was wondering something like that.
Mystacidiums will do very well. They are very tough. They're from South Africa, often from higher altitudes where they can go below 0. Things like Erangas will do well if they will need more protection because they often grow in forest where they are certainly protected from the elements. Things like Cytorchis will do well. I don't foresee any problems with Cytorchis. What else can I? Tridactyl will do well. There are quite a few things that will do well. And Cerias you're going to have to protect, I think, in the Bay Area for sure. I think they need more heat than any of the others. I know James and Barbara, they do well with the Ancelias.
Okay. I said one last question about what's the eventual leaf span of the Certorchis crassifolia?
So in nature, it is about, I would say the biggest plant I've ever seen was maybe 2.5 inches across.
No, you're kidding.
Our biggest plant in cultivation that gets fertilized and everything is about 3 inches across.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't think of all your time, but no, thank you for that. That was excellent. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Lourens.
Lourens, I have a question. Susan here. Yes. I had bought a Diapanthe Milleri from you over the weekend. Thank you very much. I love all the plants I got from you. But it looked in the pictures like it grew kind of on the undersides of the branches. Do you recommend growing it fairly shady?
Yeah, very shady. It grows in coastal forests close to streams and rivers. So in nature, it likes a lot of shade. But as I said, it grows next to our crassifolias, which technically grows very bright. So I would say if your greenhouse is about 60–70% shade, that's good for it. Although it will go darker, not a problem. I think the problem that you might have is if it is darker, it will take longer to dry out. And if it's cold, you will want it to dry out faster. So maybe try in winter, especially to grow it brighter so that it can dry out quicker.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very, very much. Great talk. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But any other questions? I hope you're getting the gist that the Angraecoids overall don't like to stay wet for too long. They really need frequent waterings, but they have to dry out between waterings. But the challenge for me has always been stem rot in Angraecoids, and if you do start, you only see it when the leaf starts falling from the base, and then it's too late. And the trick there is to let them dry out quickly after watering. All right, any other questions? There's one more there. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's called sickle bush. It's a pioneer plant in South Africa. So wherever there are disturbed areas, this is the first shrub that populates those areas, and it's a very hard wood that doesn't rot quickly. Those mounts will last easily 5, 6, 7 years before they start rotting. So I've seen that if I plant the same species on cork and on that wood, on wood certainly are happier because it keeps a little bit more moisture for the roots to collect. Yeah, the cork dries out extremely quickly. Yes, acacias is what we use. So what kind of mounts do you use there? Because you've got cork, I'm sure, but natural cork, is that what you use primarily, or oak? Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys ever do barbecues? But with charcoal then, or with wood? Because I always tell everybody back home that if you're going to do a barbecue with wood, you're using a wood that's going to make you like nice coals, and that's a hardwood. And that's normally a very good starting point to mount orchids on then as well.
There's a tea tree, I can't remember the proper name for it. So, what's that tea? That's really good for mounting plants. It's a harder wood.
Yeah. What kind of wood does Andy Phillips use? I think. Okay, so I think that would be a good starting point if you want to mount orchids, because he's tested it, everything. Yeah.
Tom Pickford, you're online here. Tom is a cedar, untreated cedar plant, right?
But at the end of the day, you want the kind of wood that's not going to rot in a year or two's time. It have to go 3, 4, 5 years at least, because that's one of the benefits of growing orchids mounted, is you don't have to repot it every 2 or 3 years like potted plants. You can actually, cork is fantastic because it will last you forever technically. If I had cork, I would use cork more often, natural cork. That is probably one of the best substrates. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have one other question. Do you have any idea why there's so little variation in color?
We've got the animals. We don't have the color in orchids. No, I don't. It's a question I ask myself as well. If you go to the terrestrial orchids, you'll get lots of color. The Dizas, the Satyriums, the Yellowfias, there is lots of color, pink, red, you can name it. But epiphytes, Polystachya has got a few colorful orchids. But other than that, it's white, green, brown, or yellow. Yeah, so the pollinators are the moths for sure. But we've got sunbirds, we've got so many other things, and all the other wildflowers are colorful. It is a very weird phenomenon. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but still we've got a big variety of pollinators, for sure. There's enough insects in Africa to, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a old continent and the speciation is firstly, the number of orchids is very low for that size. So maybe that is a explanation, but then Madagascar is a small place with a lot of species, but also all white or, yeah. That's a very good question. I wish I have the clear answer for that. Yes. Sorry? A braai, yes, a barbecue. Yes. A barbecue. Yeah.
Anything else? Lynne is ready to start.
No, you can leave it. Yeah.
Okay, Lynne, can you unmute if you want to go ahead and start?
I have unmuted Geoff and I'm ready. So could I go to share screen? I think I can't get to share screen until Lourens unshares.
Okay.
Try now. What? Hold on a second. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
What do you see?
It's not in the full share. We see.
Oh, you're breaking up. Sorry, Geoff.
We see the previews on the left.
You want to go to slideshow?
Yep. Now what do you see? Same thing.
Dang.
Stop share.
I don't see that.
Up, right. See the center, up, center. Okay. Now go down here and do screen share.
Hi, Tom.
Hello. Howdy. All right. Now, where is that image? Let's do escape. Here, let me just see it.
Look who showed up in the nick of time.
I'm gonna get this other.
Okay. Then I went to slideshow.
That's what Toms are for.
Oh, they are. Yippee.
Get it. Where's your PowerPoint? Here it is.
There it is.
All right. Now, why can't we get?
Just lift it up a little bit. It's down here.
it is.
There we go. Now what do you see?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing but all the members.
Yep.
Yep.
Let me sit down, please. Just a second. We have to figure this out. Sorry. Okay. Let's just turn off our video and share screen. There we go. Okay, that's that. Now we do this. Okay, share. Now we do this.
Hey,
There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right, now you're seeing Lynne's SF show and tell first slide, right? You don't see the notes.
right.
Correct.
There you go.
Alrighty, good, good, good. Thank you, Tom,
Thanks, Tom.
who showed up in the nick of time, as always. Okay, so we have a smaller but still gorgeous virtual show and tell tonight. We have 30 beautiful orchids from 11 contributors. I appreciate everyone's time to photograph and send me the photos for show and tell. So let's get started. The order in which they're shown is the order in which I received them. So Dale Martin shows us Pisces bractescens. It's a lovely color form of the Central American species. Pisces are fairly uncommon in situ, but found on the lower slopes of mountains facing the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean, where they grow as epiphytes in wet mountain forests, usually below 5,000 feet of elevation. So it likes good humidity, year-round water, dappled to bright indirect light. The flower is almost 3 inches and it's waxy and quite long-lasting. This is Dale's Phalaenopsis KS Super Zebra. The KS in the name refers to the breeder, Kung Sur Orchids, who registered this in 2014. It's a beautiful crystalline flower. You can see it just glistening there. Very complex hybrid with many lovely species in its heritage, including Violacea, Tetraspis, and Amboinensis. The contrast to the colors and the yellow and purple in the lip are really spectacular, Dale. Oops. Dale always sends me 8 or 10 flowers and makes me choose. So here's Dale's Leliocattleya Trick or Treat Hobgoblin, which was awarded in HCC in 1978. And it's as striking as ever. If you love orange, this was for you. Looking at the parentage, we can see where it gets its shape and its color. We can see that Dale has about 15 flowers on this cane, and the flowers are up to 3 inches across. This can be a good house-grown plant, as it needs fairly bright light and the intermediate temperatures of your home. Dale is a particularly great grower of paphs, and this paph black cherry is a good example of the plants we see from his commercial greenhouse, Austin Creek Orchids. It's a complex hybrid, but over 50% of the parentage is paph callosum, which gives it that amazing dorsal sepal. And do you love all of the little hairs on the margins of the petals? They're adorable. Paphs are good windowsill growers because most of them prefer intermediate temperatures like in your home and medium light, and mature plants should not dry out between waterings. Roberta Fox shows us this Thalamitra X. Maximiliani from Australia. This is a natural hybrid found in nature rather than man-made, and that's signified by the X in front of the species name. Roberta says the parentage looks like it's up for debate. From the Flora of Victoria website, quote, a presumed hybrid between Thalamitra antenifera and either Thalamitra carnea or rubra, or members of the Nuda or Pauciflora complex, or quote, who's your daddy? Color is pink-red. Getting the camera to see the color correctly is another issue. Like all Thalamitras, the flowers are open only in very bright sunlight. If it's overcast or they get shaded, the flowers close up until the next time that they get enough bright sunlight. Note the curious little visitor to the right. Like all of Roberta's Mediterranean climate terrestrials, this grows outside of Costa Mesa. Once it dies back after flowering, it's completely dry until well into October. The potting medium she uses is about 80% inorganic pumice with a bit of potting soil mixed in. Roberta's Diurus orientis. Orientis is from Eastern Australia, hence the name Orient is Eastern. There are about 100 species in the genus Diurus, a terrestrial genus confined to Australia and Java, and it's commonly called the donkey orchid. Can you see the donkey in the left-hand photo? Orientis is a medium-sized, cool to cold-growing terrestrial species found in the Australian states of Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, and South Australia, occurring in grassy eucalyptus forest at elevations of sea levels to 1,000 feet. And if you look at the bottom, Roberta shows us a link. This is a great website to the SoCal Orchid Species website, which has some eye-popping and unique orchids each month. Roberta's Campanulorchis was previously an area Campanulorchis. This is globifera, sorry. The backs of the sepals of these cute little flowers are very woolly, as you can see, and the buds are little bundles of wool. The plant is a rambler. It stayed in the pot for Roberta for about a year, and then it escaped over the sides, and now it's blooming even better. The species is native to Vietnam. In montane forests, it grows outside on Roberta's patio with winter lows about 35 to 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Summer high is 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The fuzzy little flowers are about an inch. This could be a good candidate for growing outdoors in the Bay Area, as it wants much less water in the winter months. Roberta's Dendrochilum parvulum, with lots of flower power and a compact package. There's somewhere around 40 spikes here with lots of tiny flowers. They're only about 1/4 of an inch. This plant grows outside on Roberta's patio in Costa Mesa, fairly shady. This is a species found only in the Philippines in forests around 3,500 to 4,000 feet. So it wants intermediate temperatures in winter. There are around 280 species of Dendrochilum, which range from Myanmar to the Philippines. Dendrochilums are great windowsill candidates, as they can be mounted, as I think Roberta's is here, or they can be potted in bark mix, intermediate temperatures, lots of water while they're growing, less in winter but never dry. And many of them are fragrant, which is an added bonus. This is Tom Pickford's Laelia jungiana, all dressed up for transport to judging in Lincoln, California 10 days ago, where it was awarded an Award of Merit. And Tom gave it the clonal name of Memoria Nick Burnett in honor of one of the best loved and respected AOS judges. Many of you knew Nick. Nick passed in December, early December. Laelia, or now Cattleya jungiana, is a very rare Brazilian species growing on trees from 4,300 to 5,200 feet of elevation. Tom grows this in his cool greenhouse, which gets down into the low 40s this time of year. This is not an easy orchid to grow, but the flowers are up to 6 inches across, which is very large for the size of the plant. So it's very rewarding when grown successfully. This is lovely. And this is Tom's Cattleyanthe Tutankhamun. I know this is not the correct spelling of Tutankhamun, but it's how the orchid was registered. So the spelling is correct for this plant. If you attended POE, and I hopefully you did, just as you entered the display room from the entry hall, it was the first orchid you saw on the left on Marin Orchid Society's display table. And on Thursday, the AOS judges awarded it an Award of Merit, and it was chosen as the best Cattleya Alliance in the show. Pretty heady stuff for Tom. It had 32 flowers on 8 inflorescences, and I think the price of a division just quadrupled here. As you can see, it's a complex hybrid, and Tom grows it cool with bright indirect light, less water during the winter months. Uh-oh, I went the wrong way. This is Tom's Cattleya Julia Burke. Tom has a bit of an interesting backstory on this orchid. If you know Tom, he often has an interesting story. His friends Dave and Alice Tomasini found this old unregistered cross in Tom's collection and asked to have it. They were looking for a plant to honor a recently deceased friend. They registered the cross in 2021, named it in her honor, and then returned a division of it to Tom. These hybrid cattleyas are a great addition to any collection for the greenhouse or for the home grower because they have what is known as, quote, hybrid vigor, meaning that they've been bred to be more hardy and to accept a wider range of temperatures than the fussier species cattleyas. They're very rewarding with large, long-lasting flowers. And Geoff Harris shows us Odontoglossum nevadense. The name means that it's the high mountain odont, as it is found in Colombia and Venezuela, in middle to upper cloud forests at elevations around 6,500 feet, as a medium-sized, cool to cold growing epiphyte. There are around 60 species of Odontoglossums concentrated around the northern Andes Mountains, but the taxonomists recently moved nearly all of them to Oncidium. Nevadense has chestnut brown flowers, which are up to 3 inches across. We can see that it grows well for Geoff in a slatted plastic basket, and it looks like it's in sphagnum moss to give the roots enough moisture during the spring and summer. But odonts want much less water in the cool winter months, not completely dry, because they get lots of moisture from the atmosphere where they grow in the cloud forest. Geoff shows us Vandicostylus, or formerly Darwinia. Rainbow stars, pink pearl is the clonal name. This is a Neophoenicia falcata crossed with Darwinara charm. We can see that it is 75% Neophoenicia, which gives it the classic shape, but Neos are always white or cream colored. So crossing it with Darwinara charm gives it this great fuchsia color. This is a charming little orchid for any collection. It's fine with dappled to bright indirect light and cool to warm temperatures. So it's a very flexible little gem. It's great potted in medium fir bark with some charcoal and sphagnum added. Jonathan Fong shows us Dendrobium cuthbertsonii, which he's growing very successfully in a terrarium. These are not easy to grow well unless you're Tom Perlini. The purer the water you can provide, the better these will do. I have a bottle of distilled water to spray mine with every time I walk past, and they do not need a dry winter rest. They prefer constant growing conditions. This is a miniature species from New Guinea, where it grows at high elevations, on moss-covered trees, or on mossy rocks near streams, so that tells us they need good humidity. The flowers are really charming, about an inch, and they last for months and months. I suggest that you buy one Cuthbertsonii and experiment with water, humidity, and light until you have found the right conditions for it. Then go wild and buy another 1 or 2 or 3 or 10. They're very rewarding little gems, and they come in a variety of jewel colors. Beautiful. This is Jonathan's Restrepia, which he received as a gift without the tag, but he's guessing that it is Brachypus. If anyone can confirm or correct the ID, please use chat to let Jonathan know. Jonathan also grows this in a terrarium, but a slightly wetter terrarium than the one with the Dendrobium cuthbertsonii. Restrepia is a genus of about 50 species found from Mexico to northern Argentina at a wide range of elevations and perfect up to about 7,500 feet. So it's a cool to cold grower, perfect for growing outdoors in the Bay Area in a spot with strong air movement and some protection from the rain. This is a miniature and it'll grow well in small pots with high humidity and shady conditions. They'll look like charming little bugs or cockroaches. Susan Anderson shows us Arangus fastuosa. The name means proud or the magnificent Arangus. And these pure white 1.5 inch flowers certainly are lovely. They're waxy, they last about 3 weeks, and they're fragrant, particularly at night. You can see the long nectary is curled up under the flowers on the left. Those flowers are just unfurling, unfolding. This is a species from eastern Madagascar, where it's found at about 300 feet, growing in warm, shaded condition. Susan grows this in her intermediate greenhouse, and it would be a good windowsill plant. It's small, it's rewarding, and it can add a lovely scent to your bedroom at night. Wow, this is Susan's Dendrophylax funalis. Dendrophylax is a genus of about 14 species found in the West Indies and tropical US. They have spurred flowers and they're leafless. Monopodial plants that have flattened, velamen-covered roots, which we can see here. The velamen-covered roots carry the chloroplasts necessary for photosynthesis. Thereby, they eliminate the need for leaves. So you've all heard of the leafless ghost orchids and the great lengths that collectors have gone to locate them. There's a book about the efforts to poach Dendrophylax lindenii from Florida's Fakahatchee strand. The Lindenio ghost orchid is shown at the left. Susan is successfully growing another Dendrophylax species here. This is funalis. She grows it on the water wall in her greenhouse, intermediate greenhouse, and this is a beautiful blooming of it. The flower is over 1.5 inches. It's waxy, lightly fragrant, and it was much too delicate for her to take to POE. It's found in Jamaica in wet limestone forest. This is a great job, Susan. Judy Carney shows us Dendrobium tetragonum, which she grows in her cool greenhouse. This is a beautiful, very dark form of tetragonum. The name tetragonum refers to the four-sided or square pseudobulbs, which you can see behind the flower. It hails from southeastern Australia, where it is most often found in moist, very short, shady areas with continuous air movement. The dark forms like this are often used in hybridizing with other Australian dendrobiums to bring vibrant colors to the hybrids. The inflorescence can rebloom often several times during a year, so don't rush to remove it. And it is fragrant too. This is Judy's Bulbophyllum refractum. Bulbophyllum is the largest genus of orchids with over 1,500 species. And it is also the most geographically diverse. It's found in all tropical areas of the world. And what they all have in common is a hinged lip, which jiggles or jumps in the slightest breeze to attract the pollinator. Refractum is from Java, Sumatra, and Vietnam, where it grows in dappled light, in warm to hot conditions, and in areas which receive much less rainfall from January through March, but not completely dry. We can see from the plant tag here that Judy bought this plant at POE in 2018 from Tropical Exotique, and she repotted it in June 2020. It looks like she's growing it in sphagnum to retain moisture around the roots. The flower is over 4 inches. If you're not already growing bulbos, keep an eye out for ones for your collection. They're very interesting, and most of them are very exuberant growers. This is Judy's Arangus myrrhae. This is a primary hybrid of 2 Arangus species, resulting in this pendulous inflorescence with many elegantly reflexed flowers. Reflexed means that the sepals and petals are pulled back, which are reminiscent. They kind of look like flying doves. I think you can see that on the left. Each flower has a long curved nectary, so the pollinator is likely a moth with a long proboscis to get down in there for the nectar. Arangus is a genus of about 50 species found throughout Africa, Madagascar, and the Comoros Islands. Both of the parents of this little hybrid are intermediate to warm growing, and they're fragrant. Judy is growing this in a basket high in her greenhouse, as we can see, to allow for the long flower spike. This is Judy's Coleogene Kaliana. It's found growing as an epiphyte around Ulu Kali in Malaya, hence the species name Kaliana. Judy got this plant from Cynthia Hill some years ago, and she's growing it high in her intermediate greenhouse with the sliding doors that we can see here leading to her bedroom. So she can step right out in the morning with her coffee and her kittens and enjoy her orchids. The flowers are about 4 inches. The lip contrasts beautifully with the pure white flowers. The lip is very intricate with very dark brown interior stripes, a yellow throat, and raised keels or ridges to attract the pollinator. The plant's about 10 inches with 2 or 3 pendulous inflorescences. Here, this is a beautiful blooming Judy. Vincent Pietro Mautier shows us 2 masdevallias, which he bought from Equihenra last fall, in which he grows outdoors in his backyard in San Francisco. Both of them are flowering for the first time. This is the first Masdevallia tridens, a charming little species from the cloud forest of Ecuador on the western slopes of the Andes. The plant is about 6 inches tall. It's in a 6-inch pot. The flowers are yellow tinged with pink, and they have very long sepals or caudae. The flowers are about 1 inch in length and 1/4 inch wide. And Vincent says that what it lacks in flower size, it makes up in producing nearly 3 dozen flowers. And this is Vincent's Masdevallia figueroa with a beautiful color palette of pink and magenta with an orange tipped sepals or caudae. This is a smaller plant, about 4 inches tall in a 3-inch pot. The flower is about 2 inches long and 1 inch wide. This is also a species from Ecuador. It's apparently endemic to a single high, cool valley in the southeast in a cloud forest at about 8,550 feet. Most Masdevallias are cool growing, like these 2 that Vincent is sharing with us tonight. So they're great outdoor orchids for the Bay Area. John Leathers has the only AOS award on Masdevallia figueroa, and he received a certificate of horticultural merit on a plant with 40 flowers at POE in 2017. So we will look forward to seeing yours next year at POE, Vincent. Lisa Perla shows us Maxillaria richii Natural World, named after Mr. Rich, who was a 20th century English orchid enthusiast. It was first described in 1994. Maxillaria is a genus of about 650 species spread throughout the tropical and subtropical Americas. Richii is a species found in Ecuador at elevations of about 300 to 3,000 feet. So it's a hot to warm growing epiphyte that can bloom at any time of the year. The clone Natural World was awarded to Tropical Orchid Farm in Maui in 2004. This is Lisa Perla's Dendrobium Jonathan's Glory Dark Joy. This is a cute little Australian hybrid, which is about 50% Kingianum with tetragonum added for its intense color. We just saw Judy Carney's Dendrobium tetragonum. Jonathan's Glory has received a number of awards in Australia. AOC here is the Australian Orchid Conference, not American Orchid Society, but it has received no awards to date in the US, which is interesting because there are quite a number of these plants and collections in the Bay Area. Jeffrey Doney bought the spectacular orange Cattleya at POE 30 years ago with 1 flower in a 4-inch pot. It is one of the first orchids he ever bought. He has grown it to over 3 feet across and has 30 spikes this year. The plant is pristine and the presentation of the inflorescences is really beautiful here. Jeffrey says he thinks it is time to divide it. Maybe that lost tag is buried somewhere deep inside the pot and he'll have a nice surprise. This is my Epidendrum nocturnum, and as the name suggests, it is night blooming and night scented, which I almost never get to see in bloom. I must have gotten to the greenhouse early this particular day to get a photograph of it. It either self-pollinates easily or there's a little nighttime visitor to the greenhouse because many of the blossoms turn into seed pods. This is a small but creeping plant, about 6 inches tall with 4-inch spidery flowers. It's found from southern Florida through Mexico and Central America, as far south as Peru and Brazil. I grow it in intermediate greenhouse in moderate light, but it's also a good windowsill candidate. I purchased this from Carter and Holmes in South Carolina in 2019. This is my Paphiopedilum Norito Hasegawa, which I purchased in 2020 from Dave Sorokowski of Path Paradise, who was one of our POE vendors. This is its first bloom, and it opened in time for our Philoli display on January 28th, and it's still looking good after POE. So it's a long, holds that flower for a long time. It's a primary hybrid of two species from Southwest China, Malapoense by Angraecum. Both of these are in the Parvicepalum section of the genus Paphiopedilum. It was registered by Terry Root of Orchid Zone in 1992, and it was named after one of the orchid greats, Norito Hasegawa. A photo of Norito Hasegawa as a young man is shown to the right. This 3-inch flower sits atop a stem that's about a foot tall. I grow it in my cool greenhouse with nighttime temperatures into the low 40s. This is my Ophrys 10th redinifera, a Mediterranean bee orchid, which I was inspired to buy after seeing Roberta Fox's photos on this show and tell a year ago. I bought 4 other so-called bee orchids because they mimic bees to induce pseudocopulation, but that's a subject for another time. I bought them from the Tarzan group online. This is the only one to bloom this first year, though all are growing very well. This is a terrestrial cool to cold grower found in France and Greece and the surrounding areas. I received a grape-sized tuber last August from Tarzan and a small amount of soil. And immediately put it in a mix of pumice, small fine orchiata, a small amount of soil, and did not stop watering until it showed a sprout in October. I expect this will deciduate in the next couple of months, and it will then have a dry summer rest, which is just the opposite of the other orchids in our collections, which want a dry winter rest. So if you did not attend the POE Gala on Thursday night, here is what you missed. Drum roll. This is Andrea Lodate. It's too bad there wasn't an award for the best costume and mask at the gala. Andrea would have won hands down. And we'll finish with our little pet parade. This is Kay Klum's Curious Kitty Peaches, inspecting some of the new orchids that Kay brought home from POE. Hopefully they meet with approval here. And finally, Roberta Fox says she doesn't have any pets. And here all this time, I thought that little lemur on her shoulder lived with her. But she spotted these little visitors living under the eaves outside her dining room window. It's amazing to see the growth of these 2 little hummers over 6 days and how quickly they were ready to hum off to play in Roberta's garden. So that's all of our super photos of your beauties. Until next month, be well and happy growing. Thank you.
Great job, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Stop sharing.
Geoff, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So we're in the middle of transitioning. I think, let's see here. We're turning the lights on and then we'll start using the owl in a minute. In the meantime, I was just going to show, let's see here.
I put some pictures for the, in case you can't see them when we use the owl, the ones I brought. So Lynn already showed this one. I have another one we're going to show. This SLC by Dendrobium Trick or Treat is in the room. So these are on the table amongst others. I didn't bring the zygo, but there's a little Mystacidium or Cochleota vulcanida in the room. It's in that pot. What else did I bring? You already saw those. Joe brought a white Cymbidium, no ID. And Andrea's got her Cymbidium here too. So let me get off share. Stop share. And what you need. For the video. All right. Okay, I see the owl turned his little lights, his eyes on. So let's see, how do we, can you pin the, is that what everyone else sees? Pin my, there you go. There we go. All right. Over here, over here. Oh, you're gonna.
Where do you want me to stand with the plants?
I think he's gonna.
You tell me where to stand.
Well, stand where she is. It seems to see. Okay, he just moved it. Okay, I'll move switch places with you. You stand. Over here, over here. Okay. There you go. Can everyone see it? All right, finally. So here you see Cymbidium, white Cymbidium with no ID, potentially something related to Sleeping Beauty, according to Ken. Joe, this is Joe's, what, second orchid? All right. Huh? All right. Next. is what? It's from Carl Carter, where there's Carl. It's a Cattleya or Laelia jongiana. There you go. All right. Nice pictures tonight.
Nice.
I just trade with you. This is hybrid. This is the one. Okay, go ahead. Stuff in your pocket. All right. Too much coordination here. That didn't work. Shows up better in the room. I put a picture of this up on the slides. So it's a no ID hybrid from Andrea Laudate.
Okay, I don't know who these came from.
Me.
Oh, there's yours. Okay, so you know that that's.
This is the Microcoelia I mentioned. Let's see. You guys see that? So it's a small, it's moved into Oncidia. It's Cochleota volcanica. It's a cool grower. I grow it with the odontoglossums and Draculas and Asdevalias. And then this is a little brightly colored Restrepia condorensis. It's a little on the way out. Let's see if I can. Anyway, the lighting's not good enough. It's very velvety looking in person. So, and this is the ex Darwinara. Where is it? This way.
There you go.
Left is right, right is left. All right. So it's a little vandacious looking rainbow star. I got this. They come in different colors and they're very fragrant. They smell like Fruit Loops during the midday. So it's like a little Neo-Phoenicia-like thing. All right. Oh, that's not mine. That's. That's a good name. Needs a new pot. Patricia. Yeah. And this is Jan. This is Jan's.
Okay.
All right. This was my, I think the SLC Golden Treat by LC Trick or Treat that I mentioned before. All right. Oh. Jan, what is it? Max Hedwigii. So here's the whole plant. And then if you zoom in from Belize, actually this works pretty good. There you go. Oh, that's a good one. There. Yeah, it's almost like a micro.
That one got so dry on the way here, you don't have to show.
So you have a lot of the.
Okay, now come and say.
So those that couldn't hear, Bill said he got this tiny little teeny atom because it's actually white. It's alba-esque. Do you want to do yours? Oh, you want me to handle it? The klutz? All right. Ron, you didn't come in for this? Okay. So this is K's, what is it? Pleurathalis mirabilis.
It's Tapsia now.
Okay.
Tapsia mirabilis.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, they're really nice.
And then this is,
Oh, where are the?
it's right here.
No,
This one is Cylindrolobus.
Cylindrolobus hygroides.
Yeah, that's what she said.
And the other one there is Gastrocylus calceolaris. Oh, that's the Gastrocylus.
I'm showing
Not showing.
down here. Gastrocylus.
The little Gastrocylus.
All right. I gotta make me do the camera again. Oberoniidae. K-clum, but grown by Deborah Atwood. Oberonia species.
The
And
large one.
there's no way. Let's see. Wait, your head's in the way, Geoff. This is like microscopic. Actually, this is a big one for Oberonias. Camera works pretty well, actually. Can you guys see that?
Yeah,
then this
it looks good.
Then this is the tinier one,
Succulent.
Sulfurolobus, whatever she said. The flowers are towards the tip and they kind of dry from the top. It's like, yeah. And this is from K, Epidendrum coriifolium.
Mm-hmm.
All right, not trying to. There you go. All right. This is Plata.
It's a Rankostylus.
Rankostylus
Solanidium.
dictensis by Zelenocidum onustrum.
Solanidium, I think is what it is. It's that. So,
All right, I can't do this. Start back here. Okay, you see the whole plant. That. That should work. Good. All right. Stelis. Immersa. This is a big Stelis. This way. Huh? I can't hear. Why is it called Immersa?
The flowers part
Is immersed.
in the leaf.
All right.
It's a little,
So show the camera.
maybe turn.
No, turn it.
Oh, comes out in the middle.
Come this way.
the opposite way around.
Turn.
So the inflorescence is immersed in the leaf all the way to the middle of the leaf.
That's right. Why are we doing this? We should have Lourens doing this. All right. Very well, very well. All right. And this is a gorgeous, what is this? A Dendrobium speciosum. This one you can actually pick up without.
That's exactly why I brought it, because it'll never leave my greenhouse in 2 years.
All right. And then Cattleya pristens. Look how pretty that is. That's really nice. It's beautiful, huh? And this is just Cattleya, Cattleya cendriana. Cymbidium cendriana. Gotta get that part right. There you go. All right, more? Okay. It's getting to be an almost normal plant table. Gratrixianum by Christianum. Okay. Where is it? This way. This is Malapoense, Paphiopedilum.
Perfect.
Cattleya harpophylla. And that is it. That's a really nice plant table. Thank you. All right. So for those in the room, for those online, Corey is going to find out, is going to select 4 of you randomly of those interested in a $20 Sunset Valley Orchids gift certificate. And for those in the room, there's one on the raffle. So we're going to raffle that off when we do the in-room raffle, along with everything on the table over there, as well as the posters that are on the right. And there's some wine glasses and free oranges. They take all the oranges you want. And there's still some plants for sale on the plant sale table. So Corey, let me know when we're ready to turn the Zoom off.
Okay, I will. Everybody that's on Zoom, I have some names down already, but if you're interested in the SVO gift code, go ahead and send your name first and last in the chat, and I will write you down. I have Jonathan Fong, Lillian, Barbara, Winnie, Ron, and Lisa so far. So keep sending those names in and I'll take you down. And if you are a winner, I will send you an email sometime this week. Got Roberta and Heidi. Last call for raffle.